Welcome, welcome, everyone.
Right. As people are rolling in, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for making time to be with us today. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to the conversation. We're very excited to share our colleague and guest with you today. So, welcome to Engaged In, where educators, leaders, and innovators come together to explore student engagement from every angle. This series invites you to deepen your understanding, expand your toolkit, and make meaningful connections that drive impact. I would like to tell you I'm going to have that memorized by the end of the series, but I don't think I'm going to.
You never know. We got time.
Be very honest with you. I'm Bridget Rieth. I'm an early literacy coach and Ignite Engagement Coordinator at Kent ISD.
And I'm Sarah Wood. I'm one of the educational technology consultants. So just to give a overview of what we are going to be going through here today, as you noticed when you came in that the session is being recorded. We encourage you, if you feel comfortable, to have your cameras on, but we also get life and it's okay if you have them off. We will ask you to complete a form at the end to receive sketch credit for your attendance today. So make sure you do that at the end, please. And we are also going to ask you to liberally use the chat with any questions or anything that comes up. We'll be throwing out some polls and things as we go through today. So just be aware as the chat as a resource. We are not your only resources here. The room's your resource. So if you would like to follow along, we do have a link up at the top there for our slide deck that we are going to be using today. And we'll wrap up some things at the end, but I will pass it over to Bridget, who will get us started with our engagement activator.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it. Okay, so got a little feedback last time that maybe people enjoyed the interactive parts of this, so we're going to amp it up a little bit for our connector today, and we'll use some short breakout rooms to accomplish this activator. It's called Common Ground. You're going to be in a room with 3 or 4 people, and you're going to have 4 minutes to try to find the 3 most interesting things that all of your group members have in common. And we're going to challenge you to really kind of go for those interesting things. So maybe you all have dogs, but maybe there's something unique about those dogs. Or maybe you all like to travel, but are there particular places you've all been to or things that you've all done at a particular place? So push yourself to try to think of kind of those detailed, interesting things. While you're in the group, you're coming up with 3 interesting things. Maybe have somebody jot those down or capture them in some way. And then please plan to choose somebody who can share out with the larger group what you found your commonalities for. Are there any questions before Sarah puts us in some chat rooms? All right, Sarah, I think we're ready.
Okay, let me just make sure we are going to have 4 minutes to do this, and there will be a timer that will go off at 60 seconds left just to give you that space. But I will go ahead and open those rooms.
Yes. Okay. It took a long time, and as you heard, we were still finishing when you came back. But our 3 things that we found were that if we have to choose an animal print, it's going to be a cheetah print. We wish we all 3 had shoes that had cheetah print because that would be a really amazing thing. We all love corn tortilla tacos and would eat them for lunch, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And then we all enjoy both the music and the show Bridgerton, all of its incarnations.
Took a lot to get there.
It did. All right. Who would share out of the groups that you went to, the pairs?
I'll go. So
Yes, please.
Dolly and I were not as interesting as you guys, but we both enjoy escaping to Sunshine States, in particular Florida, and we are both state fans, and we both enjoy living in downtown areas.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sally.
Mhm.
Who else will share with us?
I can go next.
Great.
I was in a group with Abby, She was driving and had her kids helping her out by holding her phone while we were doing it, but she was focused on driving. So we picked three simple ones quick so she wasn't distracted. We both have small dogs. We both drink large amounts of coffee, and we both have master's degrees.
Oh, nice. And I appreciate the safety first
Yes,
mentality.
Yes.
Who else can we learn about?
I can go. I was in a group with Kelly, and we determined that we both used to have dogs, but don't anymore. We both love traveling, and we both are hoping to go to Italy at some point.
Ooh, nice. I like that. Didn't think about that future thing that we would like to do. That was a great approach. All right.
All right. I could just dive right in.
All right.
Hello, everyone. My name is Austin Haney, and I had the pleasure of meeting Amber, Miss Rogers, phenomenal individual, one of the most interesting people I've ever met, gotta say. She lives on a farm. She enjoys the farm life. Very interesting, if you ask me. I've never lived on a farm, but I think that it's she's got chickens, she's got all sorts of life there, which I always love that. I honestly I pay top dollar to go to someone's farm just to feed the chickens. And she just gets to enjoy that every day. Very cool stuff. She likes listening to all genres of music. Very interesting. Me personally, I can get a little picky. I don't like every single genre there is, but not her. She's different. And a perfect day for her is to be able to just hang out around the house and just be productive. No distractions, just get work done. Just a real hard worker. Exactly what the type of mentality we need here at the Ken ISD. Uh, Me, for my interest, I happen to be left-handed, which I think there's only a small percentage of people on the planet that are left-handed. So, just throwing that out there. Shout out to all my left-handed people. I was a model in the Art Prize fashion show this year, which won $100,000, which was really cool. I made it into the news and stuff like that. Posted some like photography, like modeling photos, which was really cool. Got a pleasure to working with really cool people. It's two girls that run the company, and they're really cool people. If you ever get a chance, there's Second Vibes on South Division. Just gonna throw that promotion out there for free. And then also, I'm originally a business major. I never worked at a school before, never thought I'd be a teacher, and I got into Lincoln School, which is a center-based program, and I found out that I was really good at that job. So I took a chance and switched career paths, and now I'm a proud member of the West Michigan Teacher Collaborative Program, and I am earning my master's through Grand Valley State University.
Marvelous. Austin, thank you. I love the way that you were noticing sort of the intersections where you and Amber had some similar things. I'm thinking the chicken, for example, but
Yeah.
also that some of the uniqueness is a beautiful
Oh,
thing about this group. So
it was a pleasure. It was always great meeting new people. Thank you
thank
for
you.
you.
Yeah, you bet. All right, we are going to jump right back into our content and reconnect with, if you were here last time, we started with this deep dive, not a deep dive. Let me say that again. We really did an overview of the accelerators with Kelly Campbell. And as we're going forward, we're going to take a look into one or two of these at a time so we can dig in a little deeper. I appreciated that some of the feedback that you shared was, I wish we could spend a little more time in each of those. And I'm so glad you said that, because that's exactly what we're going to do. So Sarah, let's bring those accelerators back.
Yes. So this is the result of a lot of work that has been happening at Ken ISD. We, over, I think, 3 years now, Bridget, have been really digging into the research behind student engagement and what that looks like. There's a lot of research out there for the elementary, not so much in the secondary. And so that really kind of caused us to really dig into what does this look like? Lots of different kinds of research, not just reading kind of thing. We did focus groups, and this is kind of a result of that work that we did and kind of landing on what we're calling these accelerators for student engagement, with those 5 different areas and some of those things that kind of speak to that. We also know that this is small and hard to read, even if you pull it up on your own computer. If you click on that webinar guide link that's on the page, we do have a bunch of information that we'll be updating as we go through this series. But as Bridget has highlighted right there, there's a link to that, which will give you the full large scale PDF that you can print and enlarge in that. So we just wanted to point out, yes, we realize it's slow. We're working on getting a updated resource of that based on the feedback that we were provided at our last webinar.
Exactly. We appreciate that, letting us know. Please feel free to access that copy at any point, whether it is for yourself or if you're sharing it with colleagues. We just wanted to make you aware that that is there at all times for you. What are we looking at specifically tonight, Sarah?
So tonight we are focusing on the accelerators of climate and environment and relationships. So we have an amazing guest here today who's going to help us really dig into these and what this looks like in her space. And we have this is the same text and information that was pulled from that larger graphic that we were just showing, just so it's up front and you can see. And what you will notice throughout the presentation this evening is you will see these little icons, and those icons are just calling back to that larger graphic. So you can see if like this is like a relationship move that we did. So thinking of that activator that we did at the beginning, there was a heart on that slide. If you go back and take a look at that, just showing that that's a way that we're working on trying to build relationships. So you'll see that as we work throughout the slides this evening.
Yes, and through the series. So we know that relationships are critical and that relationships have a lot to do with what the environment in a learning situation is going to be, whether that's a classroom or some other learning context. There is more and more research, but a bevy of research, I should say, about the critical nature of those relationships. And when you boil it down, it often comes down to that idea of trust. So this particular study was one that I was looking at recently, fairly recent study, looking at high performing urban educators and looking at like, what is it that helps them be high performing? And a great big piece of that was that relationship that they were constantly cultivating for their students and developing that trust. I loved the phrase, it's the connective tissue of the school environment. So taking a look at these 3 bullet points, I'm going to give you a moment to think about how this connects with what it is that you do. So we're looking at fostering belonging. We're looking at, of course, always academic engagement. That's what we're here to talk about. And we know that the social emotional side of it is inseparable. It's critical, and that trust helps support those relationships. And Sarah Flinsky is going to talk about that a little bit. A key insight here is really thinking about where our priorities live. We can have the most amazing instructional strategies. We can have the most amazing content and be the most amazing teachers. But if we don't have that trust with the student, we will underperform. Another great word. Relationships are really the key to making it all work. Oh, Sarah, I'm looking at the time. I think we're going to scoot right into Sarah Flinsky's portion. Does that sound good to you?
Perfect.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll take over. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I am very excited to be here and present about creating supportive spaces for our students. And if you want to let me, I can share my slides.
I will absolutely do that, but I wanted to, Sarah Wood, would you like to, did you notice that Sarah Flinsky tried not to be introduced?
I know, I was like, well, I'll just go with it. So as Sarah is going to be explaining here, we are so excited to have her. Sarah Flinsky is she is our health education consultant at the Ken ISD, and her work spans a lot of different space. And I am so excited to hear her message that she's sharing tonight. And as that's kind of leaning into those accelerators of that climate and environment and relationships. So I'm really excited to hear what she has to say, and hopefully that you have some great takeaways from her today.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, do I have it right? Sarah Flinsky, you support actually 3 different counties. Is that correct?
I do. Yep. So outside of Kent, I also support Ionia and Montcalm educators as well with health ed and PE. So
wonderful.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, happy to be here today. So yeah, part of my role at the ISD involves facilitating an HIV and sex ed certification course. So a lot of my knowledge and background is in creating safe spaces for sensitive content. And so today I'm hoping we'll be able to explore how some foundational principles can also be applied to broader classroom settings that you all work in. So I like to start off by sharing data because it really gives us a good starting place to see where some of our strengths and where some of our gaps might be. And we know that student engagement and student belonging both have a large impact on student success. So in 2019, several superintendents from the Kent County area gathered to create this MI Student Voice Survey that really captures student voices on the holistic student experience, including some of the categories that are on the slide here. So social emotional learning, student engagement, and belonging. And the survey has grown since then. We had last year 108 districts participate across the state. And then they also launched the educator and parent and guardian surveys as well. So some exciting things going on. So sometimes we feel like we're doing a great job with student wellness, and it's really important to show how that's reflected or shown in the data. And I want us all to really think about how data can tell us a story that maybe we might not be telling ourselves. For example, when we think about students who maybe identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or trans, or LGBT, or some of our non-binary students, or students who don't identify exclusively as being a man or a woman. And so I'm going to share some data from a local school here in Kent County that relates to some of the accelerators that we have for today, which was again relationships and climate. So the first question I pulled was, do you feel like you belong at school? And this is broken down by gender. And again, this is from a high school in Kent County for the 23/24 school year. But I think it's important if we focus on that ISD average, which is on the far right side, that includes 18 districts in Kent County. And if we look at this question, we can see that the students who identify as non-binary, right in the middle there, as well as students who identify as other or prefer not to answer, are scoring lower than our other students who identify as male or female. So looking at the non-binary students scoring for this question, an average of about 2.72, which puts them really between that rarely and sometimes feeling like they belong at school. And again, I should explain. So the almost never is going to be a 1, and then almost always would be a 5. So again, that 2.72 kind of puts them in between the rarely and sometimes. The next one, kind of thinking about student-teacher relationships. Again, we see students who identify as non-binary have a lower percent positive responses, as well as with the students who identify as other or those who prefer not to answer. Thinking about are teachers respectful towards you as a student? We have non-binary students in the county feeling generally more positive about teachers being respectful towards them with a score of just over 3.5, 3.74. And then for connection to adults, the average for non-binary students falls pretty neutral, while students who identify as other fall between rarely and sometimes do they feel connected to adults at their school. This slide looks at how students feel their connection to other students. And so for the previous slide, we talked about connection to adult was just over 3 for the non-binary in that ISD average, which is slightly better than the connection to students. And so overall, we might see an area for growth in peer relationships for students who identify as non-binary. And then the last one here, do people in your school understand you as a person? The lowest percent positive score is again with that non-binary student at 2.63, which puts them again between rarely and sometimes do people understand you as a person in your school. So I think it's important to talk about the survey. And if your district does participate, you will get district specific data that looks like this. And so as a district, you can really drill down into the question level report to see what questions might be driving some of those low scores. So for example, you could look at scores on questions about adults at your school treating people from all cultures, backgrounds, and religions' abilities fairly. You could see results there. You could look at results for questions about students having classes with other students who are different from them, whether, culturally, racially, different religions, abilities, and things like that. So you can really drill down and see maybe where some gaps are. But I'd like to take 3 to 5 minutes to just step away from the data and for a moment just connect this data to your professional role. So I'm going to open up a Mentimeter in 1 second, but I'd like you to think about maybe what specific data was most surprising and what data confirmed an existing feeling or observation that you had. And we talked about how this data shows what students are experiencing. And think about what are some reasons or factors within your classroom that might be contributing to these results. And I will open up the Menti here. I'll give you a second to just think on that. And then if you go join us at menti.com, you will be able to enter the code 44817341. Give you just a few minutes to pop in there and think about maybe what was surprising to you on the MI Student Voice data. Anonymous. Or if you feel like you'd like to write it down on a piece of paper instead, that's fine, just as long as we give some time to reflect. So someone posted that they were surprised to see how disconnected some students might feel in their school. Yep, how certain students might feel more connected to staff. And it might be hard to tell in our day-to-day as we're working with students to see this, right? I'm going to pop over to the next question. Think about what data confirmed an existing feeling or observation. We have some opportunities for growth. Yeah, these are all great responses. Thinking about connection, relationships, opportunities. Give just 30 more seconds. Do you have any other thoughts? Working on all different levels of connection. And for our last question here, what are some reasons within your classroom, school, or district that might be contributing? If you're comfortable sharing. We have lack of support. Anything else? Constraint. Yeah, I see some similarities here. Maybe lack of support, not knowing maybe what to discuss in the classroom. There's a policy around that. Um, Maybe 30 more seconds if you have any other ideas that are coming to mind. I want you to hold on to these as well as we go throughout the session today. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone taking the time to kind of think about that data in a different way. Um, yeah. Get out of here. All right. So now we have the data. We looked at the data. So you might be thinking, what are our next steps? Now what? And I think it's important to talk about trauma, because really understanding trauma is crucial for student engagement because we know that trauma can fundamentally impact a student's brain function, behavior, and ability to feel safe in the classroom, which are all prerequisites to learning. So students need to feel safe before they're ready to learn. So think about how you can shift your thinking, and when you think to yourself, what's wrong with the student, to maybe what happened to the student. So trauma is an experience that is physically or emotionally harmful, which has lasting negative effects on students' functioning, learning, and well-being. So these principles come from a guide to trauma-informed sex ed, which is linked there if you're looking for sex ed specific principles. But again, I really think that these principles can be applied in the broader, classroom district. So to start off with safety, this is really the foundational principle for a trauma-informed approach, and it encompasses physical protection and the emotional assurance that students' thoughts and identities will be honored and free of judgment. Trust and transparency really means consistently providing clear expectations, sharing information about activities, and offering maybe some warnings about potentially activating content that builds trust and reinforces a sense of safety in the classroom. We talked about peer support, and we know that it's vital for all students, and it might be an area of growth for students in Kent County. We know that peer support builds safety and trust by allowing students to actively support and mentor one another in learning. For collaboration, a collaborative approach is really essential to a trauma-informed environment because as we think about, leveling that power difference and restoring a sense of agency and ownership for our students, thinking about empowerment, voice, and choice, again, important in a trauma-informed approach by shifting power and voice to the students, actively involving them in decision making, and really focusing on their strengths is very important. And then finally, with the cultural, historical, and gender issues, school staff really need to acknowledge that trauma often relates to a young person's identity and culture, including lasting effects of historical trauma and discrimination, which is experienced by marginalized groups. So understanding these systemic biases and providing culturally responsive services is really crucial for engaging our students. I'll give you a second here to read information that's on the slide, but we know that schools have a huge role, as we can see, with giving trusting spaces and how that really has an impact on health outcomes, specifically for LGBTQ youth. So we talked about some of those trauma principles. I'd like to hear from you all about maybe some current classroom strategies in each one of those trauma-informed principles. So in a second here, I'll share a Google Doc where You'll have editing access in each of those principles to add some things and ideas that you currently do. And so we'll take 3 to 5 minutes to fill this out, and then we'll come back together and I'll share some other tips and things that I've come across as, like I said, I share this out with educators in some of my certification courses. And so you can create this document to refer back to, save it to your computer. This will kind of be your document that we'll create as a group together. Are there any questions before I share the Google Doc that we'll work on?
I think, Sarah, I just want to encourage people that if nothing's popping up immediately within your own context, I want to invite you to broaden that out. Maybe there are effective strategies that you have seen either in colleagues' rooms or you've experienced, to really trying to think collaboratively about what are some strategies that are working to support the importance of this work. Sarah, did I say that right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Well, I'll just give 3 to 5 minutes and yeah, think about what things you're already doing, and we'll check in a little bit. You all have some wonderful ideas that you're already doing in the classroom, which is really great to see. And I'm hoping that you will refer back to this document if you're looking for other ways, maybe something you haven't tried yet. It looks like we have a lot in safety, which is awesome. Um, Thinking about doing check-ins, classroom agreements. I see a couple times inclusive language, making sure students have the option to step out of the classroom and get support. Looks like, yeah, we have a lot in each category. Trust and transparency, student-driven deadlines, clear expectations, making sure that everything is clear and transparent. I'll also add on there like maybe source transparency. I can spell. So thinking about like identifying authors' backgrounds and perspectives. Peer support we know is one where could have some growth. Being able to model active listening skills, having the opportunity to do group work. Maybe that's not something that you do usually. And then maybe having some student choice in there. And I think this table is great. There is some overlap with some of the categories, but with collaboration, um, again, getting into the structured and unstructured can go back into that transparency too. So a lot of these kind of tie into each other, which is great. So I'm hoping, again, this is your document. Refer back to it, add to it. If you need ideas, that's here. I also have the link to the guide for trauma-informed sex ed specifically. If that's something that anyone in your school would benefit from, please share that with them. All right. So if you're wondering maybe where to start, it looks like you have a lot of things already with the trauma-informed strategies. I'd like to just bring up language as a foundational step to setting up a safe place, an inclusive space where students can be engaged and learn. So we're going to do just a very quick activity called the inclusive language rewrite. And so on the screen, you'll see some commonly used phrases that maybe either we say or maybe shows up in our curriculum. So together, we'll kind of brainstorm ways to make this language more inclusive. And we'll do this just by dropping in the chat ideas for, alternative language. So you'll see as we get going here. So instead of using terms like boyfriend or girlfriend or husband and wife, what might be a different way or more inclusive way for all students. I lost my chat somewhere. Oh, there it is. So partner, yep. See if you, any other ones? Spouse. Yep, so partner, spouse are usually ones that we first think of, significant other, couple. How about mother and father? Yep, family, parents, guardian, people at home, yep. How about instead of boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen? Friends, student. Yeah, so maybe if you're working with teens, young people, friends, I think I saw in the chat, folks, team are all some other options, my people. And then these ones are more specific to LGBT folks, but really shifting language can improve outcomes for all students. So it's important to be kind of aware of terms and terminology. So for transgender, the preferred term would be using trans or transgender. And then I've seen this come up in some outdated curriculum. We really just want to be using um, the terms that people identify with, right? So homosexual is a outdated, derogatory. We want to try and shift our language to either using, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans. This is here for your reference. If maybe you want a refresher on some terminology, on the left is a link to a online resource with the term and the definition. That's something that you want to go through. And then if you're more of a visual learner, you can print out this gender unicorn, really separating like gender identity versus expression versus sexual orientation and things like that. All important when we're thinking about, being knowledgeable and being aware of the terminology when we're talking to our students. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, I want to have you think to yourself, maybe write down on a piece of paper, um, think about what supportive spaces look like in your district. Maybe think about what you can do to support certain student subgroups like those that we talked about today in the data, maybe students who are non-binary. Think about maybe what you can do to educate students or school staff. And some of that feedback, it was maybe some teachers are uncomfortable, you don't have admin support, things like that. How can you advocate for changes within your school? And then if you want a space to collect all of your thoughts, you can use this template. And let's see if I can copy that in the chat. This will be a forced copy to a template. The first tab of the template is blank, so feel free to modify kind of the areas of impact for your own classroom, school, district. And then the second tab has some examples, just things to maybe help you brainstorm ideas or get things going. I also have a resource linked here for a safe space kit if you're interested again for specifically for LGBT youth. That is a resource there for you. I think we'll just take maybe a couple minutes to look through that template and think about some of these questions on the screen. Just take a few minutes. And again, this template is your own. That forced copy will save it to your drive, so you'll be able to make that district specific, school specific, classroom specific things you would like to work on. I'd like to make sure we have time for questions, so I'm gonna go to the next slide here as you're still thinking about some of those questions. Wanted to share some opportunities. The first one is a funding opportunity. It's $5,000 to support LGBTQ students in your school. It's an application, and it's pretty broad what you can do with it. But if you have a GSA, it can pay for attending conferences, workshops, supplies. If you don't have a GSA or sorry, a gender sexuality alliance or sometimes gay straight alliance in your school, it could be an opportunity to start one of those. And we know that having, again, a safe place, a supporting space for some of those students who identify as LGBTQ or non-binary have better health outcomes. So if we have a GSA, it's a good place to start. And I think they still have 4 slots open for this school year. So that is an application that's linked for you to share with your district. And then MDE every year has webinars, part of the LGBTQ plus students project. They have some upcoming webinars about policy, thinking about student voices, and some practical classroom strategies. So if you enjoyed what we talked about today and you want to learn more, please check out those webinars. They're free. And then I have the GLSEN Educator Resource. It's a wonderful website for educators. They have toolkits, all things to support you all in the great work you're doing. And then if you're interested in reading this book, I found to be very helpful on how to be a great ally. And so if you're interested in checking that out, I have all these resources for you all. And at this point, I'd like to see if there are any questions that I can answer.
Feel free to drop any questions you might have for Sarah in the chat, or you can come off mute. She is an amazing wealth of resources, and even if it comes to you later, we have provided her information here so that you can reach out with any questions to her as well.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bridget, you're on mute.
Just noticed that. Thanks. Thank you, Sarah Flinsky, very much for your time. And I know that this is not only something that you do well, but it's something that you do because it's very important to you. We've had conversations that I'm constantly appreciative of and learning. Thank you for the resources that you put out there. We are grateful for not only the thinking work that you led us through today, but the opportunity to pursue this in ways that might fit our own rules. Did not know you'd be even putting out a little money opportunity to help support some of the work. So that's pretty cool. All right, I'm going to head back to our slides and catch up with where Sarah was. There's her face. So moving forward, we know that if you would like to have sketch credits for tonight, we're going to have you do that exit ticket. You can do it right here from the QR code. But remember that all of our materials are going to be open through the full programming year. So you have until May 29th. Again, I don't recommend that you watch a webinar and wait 6 to 8 months before responding because, might be a little rusty on that, but you do have those. If you're coming in for the first time tonight, I know we had some people join us for episode 2 for the first time, you have the availability to go back, watch episode 1, and complete those sketch credits. So please make use of that guide. I will send out in the next couple of days, once we get that the recording up on YouTube and ready for you, I will send an additional email that has all the links in it for you. So if you want to do the exit ticket later this week, then you'll have the opportunity to do that. And Sarah, tell them how they can double down.
Yes. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide so that we have that information there. And like Bridget mentioned, these webinars are recorded. You got that message as you came in here. We understand our schedules don't meet everyone else's schedule. So We want to make sure that the information is accessible to as many people as possible. But we really do love when you are here, because these are so much more engaging when we have you there. And then we want you to have the opportunity to think and ask any questions if need be, so that if you choose to, you can kind of double down with your sketch credit that you're learning, where not only will you receive credit for filling out the exit ticket, but if you apply something new from what you've learned this evening and you're able to share that with us, you can earn an additional sketch credit. So for the total for, let's just say the safe and supportive spaces, you could earn one sketch for attending and then another sketch for putting your learning into action. And so we just ask that you fill out the link that's on here so that we can capture what you did and award you that credit.
Thank you. Okay, so we were sort of laughing earlier this afternoon. We wanted to share with you things that are being offered and coming up. And as you can see, Sarah Flinsky is head and shoulders above Sarah and I. So thank you so much. Sarah, is there anything that you wanted to say about any of these offerings?
I will just say that the health ambassador meeting is for any health and PE teacher. And then the reproductive health HIV certification is anyone teaching puberty education or sex ed, HIV, things like that. And we have a little book study in there too. So if you're interested, please join us. It'll be great. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This is who we have coming up. I don't think any of you were studying this closely, but if you were, there were a couple of changes, not in who is going to be joining us, but in the months that they will be doing it. So coming up in November, we have our own Sarah Wood, along with her colleagues, Catherine Fredrickson and Keith Tramper. They make up our educational technology guru team, and they will be coming in to talk about engagement through that lens. We are looking forward to you joining us, hopefully. And also, we do have some open spots left. We are excited to say we actually doubled the number of people signed up from the last meeting to today, of people that are participating both live and offline and watching in the recorded version. So if you would like to share this with people, we will keep the registration open throughout. Thank you again for joining us. I hope that you have a wonderful evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you in November.